in collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up this week, media freedom in Cyprus is under the spotlight. Data shows that there's no political independence or transparency in media ownership.
Cyprus is between the medium and high risk because we have no transparency of media ownership, especially when it comes to digital media. There is no law governing the digital landscape, so there is no data. We don't know who the ultimate beneficial owners of digital outlets are.
And the British Council organises a hackathon on using artificial intelligence for the common good.
We will be giving them exercises where they will get the chance to understand a bit more how artificial intelligence works, how, for example, machine learning works.
The Association for European Journalists Cyprus section recently held an event looking at the freedom of journalism and the media in Cyprus. And joining us to tell us what happened there is the director of the Institute for Mass Media, Nicholas Karidis. Nicholas, can you first tell me who was present at that discussion? Because I think it was bicommunal, it was certainly held in the buffer zone, and I'm wondering whether there is any great difference between the two sides in Cyprus when it comes to freedom of the media.
Yes, there is difference, but just to answer the first part of your question, the event was organized by the Association of European Journalists, which has as members Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot journalists. There were presentations by the head of the European Commission's representation in Cyprus. There was a presentation by the head of the ethics committee of the Turkish Cypriot journalists. And I presented the view, as we as an institute view it, of the state of media freedom in the areas controlled by the government.
And at the moment, with elections in the offing in just a couple of months, the let's say, ethics as well as the professionalism of the media in Cyprus is of particular importance, isn't it?
It is, and the overall climate is one that we have to begin with, the context in which this is taking place. I mean, we're 2 months away. We have an election which is relatively low-key. There isn't much excitement, I think, among the public. There is a sense of, I'd say, indifference, maybe even destruction among the public in terms of what's going on. I would even add that there's a level of confusion as to what they need to do. We don't have the past characteristics of Cypriot election contests where you had very firm, ideologically defined sides when it came to selecting your candidate. So the context is very different from what we're used to in the past. Now, in terms of how the media are presenting the whole situation, like everywhere else, Cyprus as well, the contest is presented as a race. We're concerned about numbers, poll results, who's doing well, who's not doing that well. And I sense that there is a frustration by the public in terms of the substance and the differences between the candidates. It's very hard for the press to push for those differences to come out and for public to be able to make a more discerning decision.
Well, that's partly, isn't it? Because most of the media is only dealing with the three front runners according to the polls. I want to talk to you in a minute about how far polls actually shape how people vote. But those three front runners don't seem to have a great deal of difference in what they're saying they'll do.
Yes, well, that's not for me to judge. I mean, I can speak in terms of the Institute and the media landscape and how it is dealing with the whole situation. I don't want to go into the politics of individual candidates, but you make a valid point in terms of the media actually playing the game of the main candidates and pushing them on the front in terms of presentation. But that's also to be expected because judging from the polls, that's where all the attention is. It is in a way unfair to the, let's say, smaller caliber candidates, but it's very difficult to discern for each individual, be it radio or television station or newspaper or digital outlet, how much attention they're paying to the main three and how much they're paying to the, let's say, second level runners. That is something that you have to check after the event, and it's very difficult to know at any given moment what the percentages are and whether that's fair or not.
Right, and let's talk a little bit about how far polling, in your opinion, can, in a sense, shape the way people vote. People don't like voting for losers, do they? And so if they think that somebody hasn't got a chance, we get back to this old thing that we hear every time in Cyprus about wasted votes and people voting for the least worst rather than the best.
Yes, I wouldn't disagree with that. But again, from the perspective of the Institute and the media, polls are tools which attract attention. They are a snapshot of what is happening at any given moment. You'll hear politicians say all the time that when they're not doing that well, they will say that it's very different in terms of what will happen on election day. You'll also hear views from those who are doing well in the polls saying that, we can't relax and we have to keep pressing on with messaging and putting out our policies. Now, I'm not so sure whether the Cypriot public is that gullible to fall for this wasted vote idea. I mean, people will vote in terms of what they believe and what they think that the candidate is putting across and how it reflects on what they believe. I think it does make a difference in terms of your willingness to go to the booth, but Cypriots are political animals. I think it is in the tradition of Cypriot politic to participate in elections. And even though we've had less and less participation over the years, especially in parliamentary elections, not so much in presidential, I think people will, in the end, vote. And the media are playing the game because they are also in a race. They are also in election mode in the sense that they too have to play the metrics game and they too have to count their readership and their audiences. So playing up the game of the election, perhaps even playing the concept of a tight race, tighter than it might be, is something that benefits them because it keeps the audiences and the readers engaged.
Right, now then you presented data, I think, that you have collated on media pluralism and media freedom in Cyprus. Pluralism, let's talk about that. Do we really have very much of it in the media in Cyprus?
Well, look, the report that I presented, or parts of the report that I presented, is done by the Center for Media Pluralism and Media Freedom, which is at the European University Institute in Florence. And I, along with a colleague, Christoforos Christoforou, we are the team that actually monitors the situation in Cyprus. So the findings that I showed at that event related to the 2021. And yes, we did find that there is a great risk factor in Cyprus in terms of market plurality. And the way that we measure market plurality is the transparency of media ownership, media concentration, the viability of the media, how well they are financially, which also has an effect on how they may be susceptible to influence or corporate sponsorship or political sponsorship even. And also we measure the commercial and owner influence over editorial content. Now, in terms of these variables, Cyprus is between the medium and high risk because we have no transparency of media ownership, especially when it comes to digital media. There is no law governing the digital landscape, so there is no data. We don't know who the ultimate beneficial owners of digital outlets are. It's different when it comes to television and radio broadcasting because there the Radio and Television Broadcasting Authority obliges anyone who will bid for a license to reveal ultimate beneficial owners. But it's not the same when it comes to print and digital. And that's where the risk lies, I think. And given the attention that the public pays to digital content and the way that we interact with our smartphones, I think it's something to consider.
Now then, let's talk about Mirto Zambarta. She is the head of the representation of the European Commission in Cyprus, and I believe as the keynote speaker at this event, she was talking about the European Media Freedom Act. Now, am I right in thinking that the main idea behind that is to set into law the right of service providers in the media to effective editorial freedom? That's never going to happen in a place the size of Cyprus, is it? I mean, it's well known that the owners of many of the media companies dictate what is going out on the news channels, and if the journalists don't comply, they're out.
Okay, first of all, I can't speak on Mrs. Zambarta's behalf, but yes, she outlined the European Media Freedom Act, which is the first time when the European Commission is actually coming along with a piece of legislation that should take maybe 18 to 24 months to go through all the processes before it is actually passed. And the European Commission has come to this not from an editorial or media perspective per se. It has come to it through the internal market and the business of media, because the European Commission has no jurisdiction over matters that relate to media in the member states. But it has jurisdiction when it comes to issues of the media as businesses, their viability, their operation, and their transparency. So the issues of editorial independence, the transparency of ownership, issues of protection of journalists, safety of journalists, come into this act as a secondary level of attention, not as the primary. However, it is something that is crucial, and it is welcome by the media and journalistic profession, because it does, for the first time, actually set into law things that media owners have to pay attention to, and what the states have to pay attention to with regard to allowing for a more pluralistic and free media environment. So yes, the European Media Freedom Act is something positive, and my own attempt at the presentation was, in fact, to encourage the media themselves and the journalists to begin talking about it, because we are still in the stage of actually the public consultation having been completed. It will now go through the European Parliament, and there are a lot of changes that might come along. So the more informed the media and the journalists are about what is being discussed, the more influence they will have on the content that will come out maybe in 2024.
And do you think it can work?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I think it can work, yes, because the actual act itself will institute some monitoring mechanisms. And already the European Commission issues an annual rule of law report, which has as one of the components that it studies the level of media pluralism and media freedom in each of the member states. It is a very crucial document, and one that I feel that governments do pay attention to. So when it came to the media freedom and media pluralism level in Cyprus, it was somewhat critical in terms of the risks, and the government has to take those findings into account and be able to respond and fix the situation. We as an institute are here to keep this debate open, to raise awareness, to put out research and our findings, to keep the public aware of the situation with regard to media, because we are all distracted and we are all busy and we don't really pay attention to where we get our news from, and it's important that we know who is putting out the information and what their agenda is.
I think I'm right in saying that also mentioned at that event was the World Press Freedom Index for 2022, which was put out by Reporters Without Borders. And the Republic of Cyprus, I think, ranked 65th out of 180, while the northern part of Cyprus ranked 81st. There is a difference, and there's been a particular change, I think, as to the way the media are being treated in the northern areas of Cyprus, with a lot of journalists and activists coming under fire from Ankara and indeed from the Turkish Cypriot leadership.
Yes, that's true, and that's what came out of the presentations by our Turkish Cypriot colleagues, I mean, the situation is rather alarming. And I must say that when you compare the situation in the two sides, it is very different. I mean, we talk about the quality of media freedom in the areas under the government's control, but it is the level of the quality that we are discussing. Whereas in the northern part, I think that you have really serious issues of safety of journalists, censorship. So yes, there is a vast difference between the two sides. And on a personal note, I mean, I was quite impressed by the courage and the determination of the Turkish Cypriot journalists in actually coming out and pressing for what they are asking for and challenging the situation when they are under considerable risk, personally.
Yes, it is quite serious, isn't it?
I was quite impressed by their level of determination.
We've got to bring this to a close shortly, but I did also notice that the data that you presented suggested that access to the media for minorities and for women, as well as media literacy, are limited. Media literacy is very rarely even discussed in Cyprus.
That's true, yes. Although there are a lot of initiatives by academics and civil society, but there is no state strategy when it comes to media literacy, and it's something that actually is very necessary in terms of making young people in schools develop critical thinking, understanding how the media operates so that they are able to make more informed decisions when they grow up. But I must say that things have improved both on the front of media literacy, but they are still at a factor which we judge to be a high-risk factor because there is no overall state strategy. On the first issue that you mentioned of minority representation, yes, there is a problem there. I mean, minorities which are mentioned in the Constitution have access to the media, though limited, but we have growing minority communities in Cyprus which have absolutely no access and no way of understanding how the media environment operates for their views to be held. And I think that's where media need to be encouraged to be able to invite or at least examine the situation with regard to those minorities. Another issue we looked at was the representation of women in media, and there is improvement in Cyprus, but not enough. That's in terms of women representation in the hierarchies of media organizations, and also in terms of women participating in media discussions, roundtables that are broadcast by the media. We see an improvement, but there's still a lot more to be done.
Yeah, especially in the news area, because women here tend to be involved more in the light entertainment, don't they? We have to leave it there, Nicholas. A pleasure talking to you. That is Nicholas Karidis, Director of the Institute for Mass Media, IMME, telling us about that event entitled Media Freedom, Challenges in Cyprus and Europe, and there are a lot of them. Thank you very much, Nicholas.
You're welcome. Pleasure.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
Stronger Together, Artificial Intelligence for the Common Good is the title of a hackathon being organised by the British Council in collaboration with the Centre of Excellence Science. And joining us from the British Council to tell us all about it is Marilena Kyriakou. Marilena, let's start off, please, by you explaining to us what a hackathon is.
So a hackathon is basically an activity where you bring people together, you put them in teams, and you ask them to find solutions to a problem. So basically, usually it's about a 2-day event, usually on a weekend, and the aim is to find creative solutions to a problem or a challenge, let's say, that you put them through during the time that it takes to lead.
Now, the applicants, I think, must be between 18 and 35. What are they going to be doing? I think most of them may already have registered, and it's possible that if people are hearing this later than the closing date, they should still get in touch, just in case.
Yes, definitely. We have a deadline, but of course, if people see this and they want to apply it and maybe they see that the form is closed, they can easily get in touch with me because we might have some few places left.
Okay, so what are they going to be doing if they do sign up?
So our activity is focusing on using artificial intelligence for the common good. So basically, using this specific, let's say, tool, which is AI, to find a solution to a social problem, which is, in our case, our framework is around sustainability, is around the Sustainable Development Goals. Our hackathon is also very educational as well, because what we will be doing is we will be guiding participants at the beginning through the fundamentals of artificial intelligence. So we will be giving them exercises where they will get the chance to understand a bit more how artificial intelligence works, how, for example, machine learning works, what it is, what it means, and how you can apply those tools to find a solution to a social issue in our case.
You sound as if you know what AI is. I have to confess, I really don't. Can you explain?
Oh dear, I don't really know that much about AI either. We as British Council, we are coming in this project, let's say. We're collaborating with Microsoft and also in Cyprus with science. This activity is actually taking place in other countries as well. Each country has a local partner, and we're bringing more the content and more the expertise on the social issues, and that's part of social innovation, let's say, element of the activity, whereas the partners and Microsoft bring a bit more the artificial intelligence. But basically, what it is a framework, is a tool that we use in a computer, where you teach the computer to make predictions and come up with solutions to something that you're asking into. That's why I use the word machine learning. It's about teaching the machine, which is the computer, to be able to do a job for you.
And it says participants need to bring a laptop. Does that mean pretty well any old laptop can do this if you know what you're doing?
In the application form, we have some requirements about the laptop. We do ask them to be Windows, I think 8 upwards, or Mac. So yes, they need to be a bit updated for the laptops, but most laptops they update very regularly. I think most operating systems are able to update on a regular basis in order to function properly. So we don't want any it's not a demanding task for the laptop. We're not asking for very specific high-end computers, but we do ask them to bring their laptop, which most people do have, because they will not be able to work on it on a tablet or a mobile, because that's how, let's say, the whole structure of the activity has been developed.
Now, when they've finished this particular hackathon, what are you hoping the participants will do to make use of what they've learned?
So we are hoping that it will inspire them, first of all, bring them in contact with other young people to exchange ideas and connect and expand their networks. So this is like the first thing that we really want. And also give them the chance to see that this is the thing, which is artificial intelligence, and the type of technical skills that are required for it, how important they are, and how important they are in answering today's and future social challenges that we have. I mean, this is how we are coming into this. For us, it's very important to be able to use this activity because it falls within our wider, let's say, objectives and program that we do as our British Council on youth leadership. Is about enhancing the skills of young people in relation to today's and tomorrow's societal challenges. So we think that technological skills are very, very important, and it's something that in Cyprus we're also quite lacking. Like there's quite a lot of demand for knowledge on AI or for knowledge on development, software development or app development, that we don't really have so many people with this type of skills for certain professions and careers. So we think that this is something that's lacking, and we want to use this opportunity to raise more awareness about it, improve skills, kickstart conversation, and also in relation to social challenges, like the social impact that this type of skills can have is very important for us.
Yeah, that's what I find difficult to get my head around, but I do see that in the blurb that I've received, it said they will receive training from a UK expert, and there's no need to be an expert on AI or climate change and social justice topics to participate, because the fundamental principles of training on AI will be part of this course, I suppose you could call it. So basically, it's just somebody who's quite interested to learn a bit more about AI, is it? And possibly who is concerned about things like the environment, and you keep saying social justice on the blurb here. I'm just wondering, how can AI solve, I don't know, migration problems or problems of poverty?
Our framework for this activity, as you said, is not just only on climate. Like, we will actually be using the Sustainable Development Goals, the UN Sustainable Goals, as a guiding framework for it. So we are very, very keen to see how artificial intelligence can be used to answer other issues. Also take into consideration that a lot of the issues around the climate crisis are interlinked to many issues around migration and poverty. Like, it's a very, let's say, intersectional approach to social issues, because usually there is a lot of unfortunate effects of climate change, which means it's pushing people towards poverty, and it's also pushing people towards migration from their homelands in order to be able to continue living their lives because of the effects of climate change. So we are, using maybe, let's say, sustainability as a guiding framework, and how it's also interlinked to other social issues.
Well, it'll be fascinating to see what the people taking part come up with, because I see that they'll be put into teams and they'll have to create an original idea and present it to the jury, and the winning team will win a study visit to an institution in the UK in March of next year.
Yeah.
So they'll be able to take all of this much further.
Exactly. The idea is to, at least for the winning team, to give them the opportunity to make some connection with an organization abroad, and learn a bit more about what is being done in other countries in relation to that. Because it's not only going to be the visit to the UK, to this institution that specializes on AI, and it's also specializing on AI through the perspective of, let's say, social innovation. But it's also an opportunity to connect with the other winning teams from the other countries that we're organizing hackathons on. So it's also a good opportunity to expand their network within, let's say, some UK contacts, but also with some other young people from Europe.
Well, it's all happening on the 16th to the 18th of December. The language is English, so obviously people need to be proficient in that. Best of all, participation is free. Where can anybody who's listened to this and thought, I'm in the age group 18 to 35, I want to do this, what should they do?
So the best thing they can do is go on our website, www.britishcouncil.com.cy, and they will be able to see it, because we have it on our let's say homepage, and they can find more information about that. They can also find us on social media. Our handle on Facebook is British Council Cyprus. They can even find it, and then they will be able to find more information about this. And from our website, they can also find our contact details and give us a call to find out more about it.
And to find out if there are places still left. A pleasure talking to you, Marilena, and I hope it goes very well indeed. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Rosie.
That's Marilena Kyriakou from the British Council, talking there about that upcoming event, which is Stronger Together, Artificial Intelligence for the Common Good Hackathon. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.